Welcome to the Captain's Log issue 136. I use this reflective space, I was about to say on a weekly basis, but sometimes it's bi-weekly, to take a deeper dive into the context of the social age, to take some of my writing and work from the week and just look at it in a different light. So for me, this is part of reflective practice, and I share it as such, so it can be unpolished, a bit fragmentary at times. But I've been just thinking back on my writing and work this year, which has been easier than some of last year. I found that writing has been easier um, this year. And I think it's because I've tended over the last few weeks to take a kind of systems view. I found myself looking down upon the systems I've been describing and looking for patterns. That's probably triggered partly by starting the new doctorate. It's causing me to actively go back and do this critical reappraisal of my work for that program, and I think this is just feeding out into my wider writing. So, in doing that, I've found myself revisiting some of the ideas in the socially dynamic organization. The sort of simple idea that organizations represent optimization of our legacy understanding. So we essentially inhabit what are industrial and post-industrial types of organizations that are very effective within that known context. So structurally, the way they are built and the mechanisms by which they are effective tend to be effective for what we used to do, which was okay because we still need to do some of that. I've described it before as mechanisms of consistency, conformity, replicability, and scale. So modern organizations are good at bringing people together, knowing what needs to be done, and creating the systems, process, structure, leadership, learning, which enables them to do it. It gives you this porcelain strength, great compressive strength. They can do it through adversity, but what they struggle to do is to change. Now, the work on the social age would describe change as a constant feature of the world today, but not just change within the known system, often this kind of paradigmatic change of the system. We can look at it in terms of power, this general rebalancing of power, the rise of social communities, and hence the greater permeability of knowledge and capability within and between organizations, radical connectivity leading to a different path through life within a different social context, less constrained by geography, less constrained by individual technology, more fluid, more social, needing organizations which are more adaptive, where engagement is an earned capability or an earned feature rather than a demanded one, a new social contract between individual and organization. So I found myself repeatedly sort of stepping up and looking down on it and thinking about it through that lens, which I think is useful. But then, of course, we need to get down to what we do about it. Now, the work on the Learning Science Guidebook has been good. I've really felt some momentum with that the last few weeks, last 3 weeks, as we've worked on metacognition, social metacognition, and before that on learning ecosystems. And the structure of that book is now starting to take shape. I've said we're going to leave it till at least April until we try to formalize it. But it will, I think, track this journey. It will talk about the context of the learning organization. It will talk in the first section, so setting the context, what's changed, why do we need to reassess what a learning organization is. The second piece will specifically look at learning science, the insights from learning science. The third piece will be about learning engineering. I shared some writing about that in the last issue. The idea that we take the insight and we engineer it to practical applications at scale. So the book essentially will say, why do we need a learning organization and what does that mean? And it will track a journey away from the infrastructure of learning, the organization as infrastructure, through to the organization as enabler. So mid-structure rather than high structure. So that the transition from one to the other is about a deep understanding of how people learn and where they learn, a deep understanding of the capability we need in our organizations and how that will be grown, a deep understanding of the impact of emergent insight and emergent technology, as well as the evolving social norms around career and engagement and community and so on. And from that insight, we can create strategy and move into tactical action. What we don't want to be doing is be held in the old industrial model, be sold strategy, specifically in the shape of technology, and end up sub-optimized, trying to move forward whilst strengthening our ties to the past. So it's interesting, the new type of organization, a socially dynamic organization, will be recognizable, but its foundations will be somewhere different. And that is the interesting challenge. Overall, I've really been enjoying doing this critical reappraisal of my own work. I'm doing that across three areas. The first is my books, my published work, looking at each one in turn. I shared last week an initial critical reappraisal of the Singapore Diary, looking at learning, knowledge, and meaning, and bringing that right up to date with the chapter we've been writing about the creation of meaning for the Learning Science Handbook. So looking at the books, these artifacts, these imperfect artifacts created as an output of working out loud, that's sort of part one. The second part is going to be looking at communities or experiences which have really shaped my thinking. So I share an article in the post this week, which looks at my experience with the vegan punks in Boston, and then doing some work with the military and the parallels between those communities, and how it really shaped my understanding of these sort of underlying features of learning, which are common across all social and organizational contexts. I found it interesting revisiting that work. I've also started on the third stream, which will be essentially looking at the library, looking at the books which have shaped me, which have shaped my ideas, the books which have been influential on me. So in this work, I won't be doing a traditional literature review. I'll be looking more at sort of influences. So again, I've shared a post that this week looking at a book, Chiver's book on the gun, a social history of the AK-47, which is fascinating. It gave me ideas about precision and space, and ideas about mythology, the mythology of Kalashnikov, the man, the flawed man, the myth of the man, the political contexts of and benefits of painting a sort of social hero as the inventor of this rifle, which has become the most prolific gun in the world, and in fact escaped its national boundaries. It's now become a sort of an icon or a totemic in its own right. So this year is inevitably going to be reflective. I'm sharing a little bit of that reflection for my new postgrad work on in this space. The rest of it is over in the Learning Fragments piece. But anyway, that's what this week is about: systems views of the world, looking, stepping up, looking out, and pausing to think: has anything changed, or has everything changed? And what should we do about it? And it's strategy into practical action, but ensuring that we are not led by the tail. So not led through technology, but technology in service of insight and understanding. I hope you've had a great week. I'll see you again next week.